From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 2 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
Geico, committed to providing service to its auto insurance customers for over 70 years. More information on auto insurance at geico.com or 1-800-947-AUTO, any time of the day or night.
How does an investment manager stand the test of time? By taking the long view through all market cycles and keeping a close eye on risk. Franklin Templeton Investments, a solid approach to investing for over 60 years. Gain from our perspective.
Somewhere in America, there's a doctor who can peer into the future. There's a nurse who can access in an instant every patient's past. And because the whole hospital's working together, there's a family who can breathe easy right now. Somewhere in America, we've already answered some of the nation's toughest healthcare questions. And the over 60,000 people of Siemens are ready to do it again. Siemens answers.
Issue 1, Pawlenty's Quest.
High hopes, he's got high hopes.
Let's grow the economy by 5% instead of the anemic 2% currently envisioned.
The announced Republican presidential candidate, Tim Pawlenty, has high hopes for the U.S. economy. He wants it to grow by 5%, $700 billion growth per year.
2% today.
This week, Governor Pawlenty unveiled his economic plan to get that 5% growth. 1. Cut corporate taxes from 35% to 15%, permitting more capital for investment and for hiring. 2. Create 2 tax brackets. 10% bracket for family incomes up to $100,000. 25% for all other income. 3. Eliminate 3 existing taxes on capital gains, on dividends, and on inheritances, thus yielding more spending money. 4. Balance federal budgets with a constitutional amendment requiring that budgets carry no deficits.
Question, how can Tim Pawlenty combine cutting taxes and balancing the budget? I ask you, Pat.
Well, you do it, John, with 5% growth a year, which throws off $700 billion in new GDP every year. The unemployed go back to work. They start paying taxes. They get off the unemployment rolls. And it's called, the magic of Reaganomics, John. It's morning in America again all of a sudden. This is Reaganomics plus. I think basically he's got some good ideas. You flatten the tax rate, reduce the tax rates, and then broaden the base, get rid of deductions, exemptions, all those things. I think that's a good idea. This looks to me like a little bit utopian. But he's got a good strategy, and that strategy is he's going all out to win the Iowa caucuses and the Iowa straw poll in August. And if he does, he explodes, and he thinks he can become the rival to Mitt Romney, who's running strong in New Hampshire, when they get to South Carolina. He's got a good strategy, I think, and he's got a bold idea, and he's being tougher, more aggressive, and I think he's doing a pretty good job.
Consumer spending, that's what he wants.
Well, consumer spending is 70% of the American economy.
Right, and he wants to generate more.
Well, I don't think that's exactly what we need, but quite frankly, if you got 5% growth in the economy, after a while, John, the budget begins to go into balance.
Well, yes, and we have only briefly had 5% growth in the economy, and they came in spurts after some pretty deep downturns, and they didn't last very long. So his plan counts on 5% growth for 10 years. It's total fantasy. And he's out there presenting himself as a truth teller, and what he's giving us are lies dressed up as truth. His tax cuts double what President Bush put out there, and they're completely unsustainable. You can't pay for them. And then he would put a clamp on all kinds of government spending, and he has a Google test. If there's a service that you can find on the internet, then the government shouldn't be doing that. You interpret that literally, you get rid of the FBI, you get rid of the Pentagon. Why? You can just, do it all over the internet. It's a gimmick, and I think he's in a good position because there's nothing sort of objectionable about him, and he doesn't have the flaws that some of the other candidates have, but this is a plan that should be ridiculed and will be ridiculed.
Do you think the story is Pawlenty, or do you think what Pawlenty is throwing into bas relief, namely Obama. Where is the Obama plan for getting us out of this recession?
That's part of it.
Is that what is coming into play?
That's part of it. The other part of it, John, is I think congressional Republicans are so politically over-invested in austerity. It makes a lot of sense to have a presidential candidate who's going to be over-invested in growth. And the 5%, he said this over and over again, it's an aspirational goal. As a goal, it's a good one. If you don't believe we can hang some 5s and 6s on the board coming out of this recession, you are implicitly accepting American decline. And we could, hold on, Eleanor, and one thing we know, if you get a Republican president with this Republican Congress, you will see austerity like you won't believe. Eleanor will be howling every day of the week about these vicious budget cuts. So this is an approach that makes sense politically and substantively.
What do you think? And welcome, by the way, Michelle.
Thank you. You know what? I like the plan. I think that if the message were being delivered by someone that had the personality of Barack Obama, the entire nation would be cheering. It's the messenger is a little bit boring, but when you talk about growth, again, I agree with Rich. It's a target. It's a goal. Any person who's setting up a business has a mission, and they look forward and they say, where do we want to be in the future? How do we get there? The problem is that he has not yet talked about the spending cuts that are going to have to come along with doing that. Cutting, his budget cuts would be even more drastic than Paul Ryan's. He's talking about 18% of our gross domestic product rather than the 20% in the Paul Ryan.
You remember, in connection with Reaganomics, which you brought up, you remember what George H.W. Bush described economics as? Voodoo economics. Voodoo economics. Ronald Reagan's economics.
That was David Gergen's voodoo economics, whom we work with. But you're right, John.
You mean the speechwriter.
Yeah, but our friend has got a basic point. What he's talking about is growth. He's talking about jobs. He's breaking out of this terrible box Obama is in, where Obama has run out of options what to do, and there's no program to get the economy moving, which you've got to do.
Okay.
And so he's filling a huge national vacuum.
Okay, the Pawlenty plan this week drew the support of a major American business leader, 20-year chairman and CEO of General Electric, Jack Welch.
Everything I see Tim Pawlenty say in the last month appeals to me. Now, if you look at what he says and his vision for America and that plan he put out in the last 48 hours, every time I see him on an interview, whether it be your show or somebody else, the guy makes sense.
Question, is Jack Welch jockeying for a cabinet position in a Pawlenty presidency?
Can't even ask the question with a straight face.
I think not. And when President Reagan was in the White House, marginal taxes were at 70%. Tax revenue today is at its lowest point since 1950. This is a plan that eliminates the capital gains tax. It eliminates the estate tax. It's a huge handout to the upper income and the corporate interests. Of course they're going to be cheering. But if it doesn't produce the 5% growth, then what? I don't think he's going to get to the White House to prove this plan, but I think it should be exposed for what it is. It's giving away candy.
Can we talk about the percentage of federal spending that Pawlenty wants this government to bear, which is 15% versus Obama's 25%?
18%.
It's 18%.
18
Obama's got 25% and he's got 18. I don't really think, honestly, you can get down to 18 given the entitlement programs.
But if you aim for 18, maybe you actually end up at 20. So it's the right goal. And we also got to give him credit. He is taking on entitlements. He says he block grant Medicaid, raise the retirement age on Social Security, means test Social Security, and he won't go quite where Ryan has gone on Medicare, but he'll be pretty aggressive on Medicare as well. So he's doing the right thing. When he tries to be interesting and exciting and inflammatory on the stump, it rings false. When he's bold and creative substantively, that's where his sweet spot is.
This is not bold and creative. This is just pandering to the same politics that brought George W. Bush to the White House and left us with these huge deficits.
I don't think it's pandering. I think it's somebody has to give us.
Hold on, let Michelle in.
Someone has to give us something positive. The nation is in this perpetual sense of purgatory. What is going to happen? The Democrats, the Obama administration, there's not enough people out there saying, here's what we're going to do. Here's the road forward. What we talk about instead is a bump in the road. And I'm a supporter of President Obama.
Okay.
But when it comes to economic policy, the nation's looking for hope.
Newt Gingrich, hold on, Ellen. Newt Gingrich 3 weeks ago.
I'm running for president because this country needs very dramatic change. I'm going to outline a program of very dramatic change.
Question. This week, Newt got his drama, but it wasn't what he had in mind. What happened, Rich Lowry?
Well, unfortunately, there was no more inevitable headline in the 2012 primaries than Gingrich campaign implodes, although I think everyone was surprised at how quickly we got that headline. There was a dispute over strategy. Basically, would Newt run a serious campaign or not? And when you go to the Greek Isles on a vacation with your wife, after the story breaks about the Tiffany expense account, you are not running a serious campaign. So all the serious political professionals got out of there.
It's an aspirational campaign. He just wants all of us to imagine we could have revolving accounts at Tiffany's and go on cruises of the Greek Isles. He wanted to run a campaign where he just shows up at debates and does social media, and he has a lot of hired guns, professionals working for him. They wanted to run a real campaign, and so they've exposed him for the charade he is.
Yeah, and he wanted to do TV. He didn't want to do ground, and that didn't go over well with his campaign squad. Exit question, does Tim Pawlenty now have the momentum? The Big Mo is the force with Pawlenty, yes or no?
He's got the Big Mo in Iowa, which he has to win, and he could win it.
Oh.
He doesn't have Big Mo. he may be the last man standing.
Mo.
Right, exactly.
You're laughing at your own candidate.
Mitt Romney is still the putative front runner.
That's about as far as you can go.
That's
right. He has the force with him.
Some Mo. He has some Mo.
Some Mo? Not the force.
Not Big Mo, but some.
Okay.
He's in a better position than Michelle Bachmann or Sarah Palin. He's got some Mo. He's getting there.
Some Mo.
Some Mo.
I'll say reasonable Mo. Issue 2, Afghanistan exodus.
These additional American and international troops will allow us to accelerate handing over responsibility to Afghan forces and allow us to begin the transfer of our forces out of Afghanistan in July of 2011.
This was the president's statement at West Point in December 2009, a year and a half ago. And the transfer of power in Afghanistan has begun. Defense Secretary Robert Gates, a veteran of 28 missions to Afghanistan, elaborated on the commander-in-chief's decisions.
We are making substantial military progress on the ground. I also reiterated my belief that these gains could be threatened if we do not proceed with the transition to Afghan security lead in a deliberate, organized, and coordinated manner.
The chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee echoed the decision to withdraw troops at his full committee hearing this week.
Our current commitment in troops and in dollars is neither proportional to our interests nor sustainable.
John Kerry is a Democrat, and even Republicans on the committee are open to the withdrawal of troops.
And if they don't want what we're trying to give them, is not going to work.
Question, is Afghanistan of vital strategic interest to the United States? Michelle Bernard.
I absolutely feel that Afghanistan, that entire region, is of vital security interest to our country. And I think many Americans, as much as we want our troops out there and we don't want to lose any more American blood, a lot of people have to sit back and ask themselves, are we going to be safe as a nation if we pull out of Afghanistan? And the other thing that I want to raise, John, that I think is something that people tend to leave out of the equation is what kind of country is Afghanistan going to be for women when we pull out of that country? You cannot have a democracy, you cannot have a civilized nation when half of the people that live in your country are treated as subhuman beings.
What about that, Pat? Is Afghanistan a matter of vital national interest?
Afghanistan was never a vital interest of the United States, John, but we've been there 10 years. We put in 100,000 troops, got 1,600 dead, cost almost $500 million. If the United States now pulls out and this thing collapses and is ceded to the Taliban, the Americans will be perceived as a superpower that lost a war to which it committed itself and will cease to be a superpower.
All right, hold on, Ellen. Here's the arithmetic. It's now 9 years and 300 days old, practically 10 years old. It's the longest war in American history. It's longer than the American Civil War, World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War. U.S. military dead 1,602. U.S. dollars spent in Afghanistan, $444 billion, Ellen.
Well, we're not pulling out precipitously. What they're talking about is beginning a withdrawal, and there are 100,000 U.S. troops there. The surge that this president ordered is 30,000 troops, and you have the hawks on Capitol Hill, led by John McCain, saying we can only pull out 3,000. You have Democrats wanting to pull out the whole 30,000 surge, which would still leave 70,000 troops in Afghanistan. And knowing President Obama, who likes to split the difference, he'll probably begin with a withdrawal of some 10,000. But you cannot keep justifying this continued presence beyond 10 years. You're going to have to wind it down. There are talks going on with the Taliban. And, I don't see a happy ending. I don't know if there's winning and losing, but I don't think this president's going to totally walk away from the U.S. obligation.
There's no reason to pull out troops this July. We've made gains in the South, taking away safe havens that they have had for years and where we have never been. You want to hold that ground. And I object. I think this Washington debate is disconnected to what's happening in Afghanistan. I think since the surge, we're pointing in the right direction on key things. The goal is clear: an Afghan government that's stable enough to patrol and police itself in the South. And the end point is clear. We're out at the end of 2014.
Yeah, but you're out at the end of 2014. What happens then? They had a report in the Washington Post which basically said if we pull out, the whole bottom will drop out of this thing. It was produced by the United States Senate.
The economy would drop. They say the economy is dependent on U.S. aid. I don't know that we're going to continue.
Yeah, but what happened to the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, their relationship with Pakistan? The area is so critical to our safety.
You're saying it's going to be a disaster, and I think you're right.
I do.
I think you're right.
The Afghanistan theater is not a theater in which our national security interest is at stake. We should pull out and pull out right away. Slowly, but pull out. Issue 3, underwear bomber 2.
I am deeply sorry that I lied about this, but at the end of the day, I lied because I was embarrassed. I lied because I was ashamed of what I had done and didn't want to get caught. To be clear, the picture was of me, and I sent it.
New York Democratic Congressman Anthony Weiner this week admitted to sending an underwear anatomy photo of himself to a woman via his Twitter account. Congressman Weiner also admitted that he had 5 days earlier lied when he claimed that the photo was sent by a hacker who broke into Weiner's Twitter account. Here's the congressman's original mendacious language.
The main question that a lot of people are asking is, did I send the photograph? I did not. This was a prank, a hoax.
Well, that quote-unquote prank may have cost Congressman Weiner the support of the Democratic Party. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi says that she will refer the matter to the House Ethics Committee to review whether Mr. Weiner broke chamber rules, including using official resources to communicate with 6 women. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid appears to be turning his back on the congressman.
I'm not here to defend Weiner.
What advice would you give him if he asked you?
Call somebody else. Okay.
Question. A recent poll showed that 56% of voters in Congressman Weiner's district, where is it?
It's up in Queens and Brooklyn, yeah.
Queens
it's
and Brooklyn.
Eleanor Cliff territory.
Do not think he should resign.
Right.
So will Weiner survive? I ask you, Rich.
I think he will. There are 3 things that could make him go: his conscience, his wife, and his party. His conscience is not a problem. His wife is sticking by him. His party wants him to go, but there's a question of what mechanism they have to make him go. And I think he's just learning the Governor Sanford lesson that if you just stay there, it doesn't matter how much people howl and pound on you and joke about you, you can stay.
Right, and his wife really is I think, the only aggrieved party here. And I gather that she's following what I would call the Hillary strategy. Their marriage is in part a political partnership, and she wants him to stay in Congress, and she's sticking by him. And that is a huge plus in his corner to stick it out. And, the voters in Brooklyn and Queens may get the decision in their hands, and that's more than a year from now.
John, I think that Weiner, I tend to agree. I think he's going to stay. First, he's committed no crime. He has lied publicly. But I don't think he's violated the ethics rules of the House. He's engaged in consensual sex, as they say, under the new morality. Some people are moving to his side, but he has damaged somebody else. He's humiliated the Democratic Party. He's knocked them off their game, and people are laughing and mocking them and attacking Democrats, saying, Weiner's one of yours, why don't you demand his resignation?
And they're attacking the whole Congress, basically.
Here's what the House ethic rule number 1 is. A member, officer, or employee of the House of Representatives shall conduct himself at all times in a manner which shall reflect creditably on the House of Representatives.
Yeah, and you know what is so sad about this? If we go back and we name all of the bad men who we've seen engage in improprieties in Congress over the last few years, not one of them could meet that standard. And what has happened, I think, is a crying shame, is that the country has become numb to it. Well, Governor Sanford made it. He could stay.
Governor of where?
South Carolina,
Right.
former governor of South Carolina. I mean,
Argentina?
and his Argentina, lover. And we have become numb to it. I think it is an absolute embarrassment. And Pat, not only did he embarrass the Democratic Party, he has humiliated his wife, and he has humiliated the child.
But is this?
But we don't want to
where are the grounds for expulsion?
We don't want to criminalize this kind of behavior.
I'm not criminalizing it, but I'm saying that our elected members of Congress, just as the president, every single person that we elect has a moral obligation to uphold the
standard should be higher than the law.
Exactly.
They're a representative body, unfortunately, of Americans, and they have a lot of human foibles. And I think that Congress, when you talk about bringing
repeatedly like that is not a mere foible.
On lots of things.
It's not just the lying.
Like
taking pictures of your body and
it's
emailing them to people.
Do you think that that's going to stir a sexting craze on the part of
it already exists.
He's at the tail
energize it and give it a new, rich dimension.
I think it will, John.
Issue 4, job angst.
I'm not concerned about a double-dip recession. I am concerned about the fact that the recovery that we're on is not producing jobs as quickly as I want it to.
The job market should be a major concern for President Obama, and ostensibly it is. The unemployment rate is 9.1%. No president since 1944, 70 years ago, has been reelected to a second term when the national unemployment rate has been above 7.2%. And these job numbers this weekend, in almost mid-June, are still worrisome. Item, individuals unemployed, 14 million. Item, 7 months or longer unemployed, 6.2 million people. Item, average time unemployed, 9 months. That's the longest time spent looking for a job since 1948. As for the overall future, Ben Bernanke, the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, says the economic trajectory remains positive, but uneven and slow.
Overall, the economic recovery appears to be continuing at a moderate pace, albeit at a rate that is both uneven across sectors and frustratingly slow from the perspective of millions of unemployed and underemployed workers.
The American people are less enthusiastic. Their overall view of the economy is much grimmer. 79% say that the economy is in bad shape. Nearly 50% of Americans believe we will face another Great Depression within the next 12 months.
Question. What was the good news about the economy this week, Rich Lowry?
It escaped me, John. Maybe the stock market held up, but that's really not what people are worried about. If you look at the job market...
Do you want me to tell you?
Please do.
The Beige Book says it's no double-dip recession.
Oh, well, that's
You know what the Beige
good.
Book is?
I don't.
It's part of the arsenal of the Federal Reserve Board.
Okay,
all of the individual eight or so entities that constitute the Federal Reserve, they call in and they give what the story is in their own environment. That's called the Beige Book. And the Beige Book says no double-dip recession, but a resumption of slightly higher growth for the rest of the year.
But this is the problem,
Federal
John.
Reserve Beige
John,
Book.
This is the
You
problem,
familiar with
John.
that, Pat?
This is
Yeah,
the
I am
problem.
familiar with the Beige Book, but let me say this. May's figures were horrible. You got jobs created, I think, went down to 55,000 rather than the 250,000 expected. Manufacturing went down. Consumer sentiment went down. 2 million homes are vacant. You've got 1/4 of all homes are underwater. John, it may be a bump in the road. I think we all hope it is, frankly, for the American people. But if it's not, the president's going to have a horrendous time getting reelected.
You think this is ledge time? The ledge? Go out on the ledge now?
I think, start approaching it.
Well,
what were you going to say? He was in the middle of some discourse.
If you stay at 2%, and you don't have a double dip, that's not very good news because that's not enough to get the job market going. A third of the people who are unemployed have been unemployed for more than a year. And the longer you're unemployed, the more your skills erode and the harder it is to get a job. This is an unspooling catastrophe for the country.
Well, I would like the president to get out there with a little more urgency in his discussions about what he would like to see happen. Even if he can't get things passed through Congress, he's got to let the American people know that he's working for them. And if the other side is obstructing, point them out. I think we need, yes, we do.
More deficit spending.
That's exactly right. All of this talk about cutting back spending, this is exactly the wrong thing to do when
Michelle.
you're still in a recession.
What I want to add is, as we talk about the unemployment rate, one of the things that this president really needs to look at also, and there's no magic program, there's no magic panacea for how we get the government, for how we get our economy back on track, but the unemployment rate in this country for African Americans is over 16%. And what he's got to worry about is, do African Americans give up and show up in 2012 to try to reelect him?
That's depression levels of unemployment.
There's another problem.
horrible.
Harper's Magazine reports that research shows that American men forced to quit work prematurely who can't find replacement jobs have a 78% higher risk of early death. If unemployment remains elevated for the next 5 years, hundreds of thousands will die early death. Will the Commander-in-Chief pull out troops from Afghanistan, and if so, how many?
8 to 12,000 in July.
10 to 15,000 in
July.
Not more than 5.
I'm with Rich, 5,000 in July.
I'll say 10,000. Bye-bye.
See how excited?
Geico, committed to providing service to its auto insurance customers for over 70 years. More information on auto insurance at geico.com or 1-800-947-AUTO, any time of the day or night.
Smart global investing requires expertise from the ground up. With insights from local experts across the world, we have a unique perspective on global investing. Franklin Templeton Investments. Gain from our perspective.
If. For such a small word, it packs a wallop. If I live to 100, if Social Security isn't enough, if my heart gets broken, if she says yes. We believe IF should never hold you back. IF should be managed with a plan that builds on what you already have. Together, we can create a personal safety net, a launching pad for all those brilliant ifs in the middle of life. You can call on our expertise and get guarantees for the if in life. After all, we're MetLife.